Today's unboxing is an exciting one. This is the MSI N560 GTX Ti Twin Frozr 2, and as you may or may have not have figured out by now, this is based on the GeForce GTX 560 Ti GPU from NVIDIA. This is a 1 gig graphics card, and it is a very special one because at the time of filming this video anyway, it looks like the best price to performance, really high performance gaming graphics card on the market. Now, NVIDIA has actually even brought out the TI designation. We haven't seen that for a very long time. When we saw it on one of NVIDIA's best-selling GeForce series ever, the GeForce 4000 Ti series. So the 4200 Ti was the big one back in the day, and that was, wow, Directx 8. So we're up to Directx 11 with this GPU. We also have support for all of NVIDIA's technologies. So let's have a look at them. They're all listed up here. We've got GeForce CUDA, NVIDIA SLI. This supports two-way SLI. PhysX by NVIDIA, as well as NVIDIA 3D Vision. Now, there's a couple other things on here as well. MSI Afterburner has a little badge on the box. It's a great little overclocking utility. Works on not only MSI cards, but other ones too, as well as it being ready for 3D Mark 11. I guess that's one way of saying that it is DirectX 11 ready. 3D Mark 11 is also included with this card for with the value of $20, so that's kind of cool. It has a 3-year warranty in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And let's see what else they have to say for the... Oh, right, yeah, this is a Twin Frozr 2 card. So what that means is that we have MSI's famous Twin Frozr 2 cooler on this instead of the stock cooler. So I'll show you guys a little comparison against the stock cooler in a bit. So they're saying up to 20 degrees cooler. It also features military class too. So you've got all of MSI's military class, there we go, it's finally focused, technology included on this board. It is a custom PCB board, okay, and it is an overclocked card. So we've got voltage adjustment, and let's see what else MSI has to say for themselves. So here they're giving us some more details about their military class concept, which I think is just great because I've found that on military class cards, I've actually noticed less squealing because of the higher quality components that are being used. And what MSI also has to say for themselves is that it's more efficient, delivers more current, and is going to last longer. Here's another little plug for MSI Afterburner, which is my personal favorite. And here's some media comments about the Twin Frozr 2. Here's some more information about Twin Frozr 2, as well as a sneak peek of the card, which you can't really see because of the anti-static bag. But direct contact design with the heat pipes, dual PWM fans, okay, nickel-plated copper base, dual super pipes. I'll show you the super pipes. So there's actually 4 total heat pipes and then 2 super pipes. High-density heatsink, and here's a little thermal comparison against the reference cooler. Although I don't know how relevant that is because I think this box has probably been reused from the 460 Twin Frozr, so either way, suffice to say, the Twin Frozr 2 is usually a much better performer than the stock cooler on pretty much anything. Alright, DirectX 11 support. Okay, most of this we've covered already, or we will cover once we get it opened up. Minimum system requirements. Okay, PCIe 16X, yep. 2 6-pin PCIe power connectors and a minimum 500 watt or greater power supply. Those are probably the most important bits. This is a 1 gig card, so it has 1024 megs of video memory. And let's finally, yes, finally, 3 minutes and 40 seconds in, get the box opened up. Alright, so first thing, as usual for me, is accessories. So MSI's boxes, I'm used to them now. Down in the bottom is where we find all the accessories. So here's our quick user's guide. Here is a driver disk. Don't use this. Download the latest version. Download the latest version. We have a DVI to VGA adapter in case you're still using a VGA monitor. And then we also have a mini HDMI. Let's see if we can get it to focus. To regular HDMI out adapter. Here's 3D Mark 11, and just for one lucky viewer, I am going to give away my copy of 3D Mark 11. So I'm going to scratch this off, and whoever gets this first, you are now the proud owner of 3D Mark 11 Advanced Edition. Oh, hold on. That's somewhat obscured. There we go. Alright, congratulations. Okay, next we have the 560 Ti series, something about their live update, so you can use that to update your drivers and whatnot. And finally, we have a few more accessories, and then we're going to have a look at the sexy GTX 560 Ti graphics card. So 2 dual Molex two PCIe 6-pin power adapters, although, as I so frequently say, if you don't have a proper power supply to run this card with a couple PCIe 6-pin powers, then you should probably be looking at a power supply upgrade as well. A balanced system is a happy system. Alright, so let's get this anti-static bag out of here. And I have a feeling at this time that this card is going to look very similar to our old friend, the GTX 460 Hawk, because a little bird told me that it might actually be using the same overall PCB layout. So first thing I'm going to do is compare it to the GTX 460 Hawk side by side, or rather top to bottom. Okay, so you can see they are both using the same edition of the twin Frozr 2 heatsink. So I'll show you the super pipes here on the bottom of the 560 Ti. You see how two of them, the ones that go out further away from the GPU core, which is in the middle, are actually thicker than the others. So those are the super pipes. The reason they're thicker is they carry heat more efficiently that way, and they have further to go. So that's why MSI made the design decision to make those ones the outermost heat pipes. Okay, so let's have a look at the top of the card. Here you can see some memory chips. Down there you can also see some other components. You can see the termination ends of those heat pipes. So there are the fat ones on the outside and the skinny ones on the inside there. Alright, you can see some MSI twin Frozr 2 branding on the top of that heatsink. Let's flip it over and see what the back has to say for itself. So here, I'm going to get this out of my way so that it's not here anymore. Alright, let's take off these protective covers, which I've never quite understood. I mean, it comes pretty well packed. I don't think that these are really necessary, but they're there one way or the other. So no sense complaining about it. So here we will find our Sli Bridge. As I mentioned before, this card supports only two-way SLI, otherwise you'd need two bridges for three-way and four-way SLI. You've also got on the back of the card the location of the GPU. You can see where all of the memory is soldered on. You can see where all of the connectors are soldered on. You can see that it does use a standard PCI Express 16X 2.0 data connection. And then also on the back you can see where the power connectors are soldered. So let's move around to the back of the card, and that is where we will find two PCIe 6-pin power connectors, as mentioned before. Now the wiring of the fans is a little bit custom because there's one mount here, or rather one plug here, and then it's going to go out here where it splits into two and then powers each fan individually. Let's have a look at the connectors we've got on the back here. So we've got our mini HDMI, as well as dual DVI. You can see the back plate actually has some ventilation slots. So you can see by the design of the cooler here. So this has there's a bit of a shroud thing going on here. So some of the exhaust from this fan is going to go out the back of the card, but most of it is going to go through and then be exhausted out here and down on the bottom. And what that means is that if you are running a twin Frozr 2 card, you will get better GPU temps, guaranteed, versus a stock cooled card, but you should make sure you have adequate case airflow to move that heat out of your case, because it's not going to be exhausting it externally. So two more things before we wrap up here. I want us to do the quick PCB comparison against the GTX 460 Hawk and see if I can notice any differences. So actually, well, here, you guys can always pause and help me. Well, here's one. The 460 Hawk has the GPU V switches on it, okay, whereas the GPU V switches are actually not present, okay, because remember, this is not a Hawk Edition card, even though it appears to be using a Hawk PCB. Oh, there's also another change here. This little component is here, but it's not here. Now, the GTX 560 GPU, while it is a different GPU than the one powering the GTX 460, it has more pipes, it is more optimized. However, it is pin compatible, so that's why MSI was able to release an aftermarket PCB 560 Ti so quickly, because they were able to pretty much drop it onto the PCB. Looks like they were able to make a couple minor changes. See, here's another one here. There's one component here when there is not one on the GTX 460 Hawk. And that's pretty much all the changes that really pop out to me right now. Oh yeah, no, here's one. So this is on the Hawk, and this is not here. Interesting. I'm no electrical engineer, so I can't tell you what all of that means, but here, I'm going to bring my 560 Ti back. I'm going to put my 460 Hawk away, and then I'm going to bring up a regular reference NVIDIA GTX 560. So, how do these guys compare? Well, you can see the reference one has a single 80mm fan, whereas the Hawk has dual 92mm fans. The reference one does have an external exhaust design, although, oh no, it's not external exhaust, so it's about half and half. So it's probably going to be exhausting a little bit more than the twin Frozr 2. So you can see there's ventilation here, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be exhausting nearly everything, not even half and half, because you can see there's more ventilation holes here and more in the top. So it's going to be kicking most of the heat out into the case as well. Twin Frozr 2 I would definitely expect to perform better, although I haven't had a chance to test it yet, but I will. You can see that the reference cooler, hold on, sorry, I'm moving it so that I can see better. The reference cooler looks to have 3 copper heat pipes, as well as a flower heatsink design, kind of like Intel's reference LGA 1155 heatsink. Okay, the PCB layout is probably going to be very, very different. Yes, it looks very, very different already. Maybe not that different. Pretty different though, versus the Hawk PCB that the GTX 560 Ti overclocked from MSI has borrowed. You can see that this PCB is actually slightly longer than the Hawk PCB that MSI is using. And other than that, I guess that's all the physical comparisons that I wanted to make. They're both dual slot coolers, of course. Very few performance single slot cards these days. Thank you for checking out my unboxing of the GTX 560 Ti 1GB overclocked card from MSI. One thing I also should mention before I wrap up here is that this card is overclocked to 580 megahertz on the core. That is versus, or rather 880 megahertz on the core versus 822 on the reference card, as well as 4.2 gigahertz on the RAM versus about 4 gigahertz on the NVIDIA reference card.